A boy steps into a prison world meant for monsters and finds a chained dragon feared by the entire galaxy. But instead of terror, he offers it bread. What follows isn't a fight. It's a bond so powerful, it shakes the very chains meant to hold it. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and show some love by giving this video a big thumbs up. Now let's jump into the story. The sky above Emberhold was never blue. It hovered in shades of red and gray, thick with storms and bitter winds that never rested. Emberhold was not a planet where people lived. It was where people were sent to disappear. Once a military stronghold, it had long been turned into a prison for beings the galaxy feared too much to kill. Somewhere between volcanic ash and silence, it became a graveyard for monsters. And buried deepest of all, in the very heart of its most guarded zone, was the pit. They called it the Forbidden Pit. Not because it was hard to reach, it wasn't. It lay wide and open in the center of Sector 7, surrounded by force fields and warning signs in every known language. But no one went near it. No one talked about it. And those who did kept their voices low. Inside the pit was something older than memory, something the galaxy once tried to burn out of existence. A dragon. Not just a beast, but a living weapon, a nightmare with wings and fire. Its name had been erased from records, but those who still remembered whispered a single word. Ashwing.Ra. I didn't mean to find it. He was only 9, small and quiet, with sharp eyes and a habit of slipping away unnoticed. His mother, Talia, was one of the few civilians stationed on Emberhold. She fixed broken oxygen filters and failing lights, always looking tired and never smiling quite fully. She brought Raim with her because she had no choice. There were no schools on Emberhold, no playgrounds, only work, rules, and silence. On the day Raim wandered off, Talia had been sent to repair cooling units near Sector 7. She thought he was sleeping in the supply room. Instead, he followed her through the security gate, hiding behind carts and crates until she was deep inside the compound. No one saw him slip away. He crept through narrow tunnels and followed the hum of power lines until the hallway opened into a wide observation deck. What he saw below froze him in place. The pit looked like a scar in the land. Massive, blackened rock surrounded a deep cavity, lined with energy barriers that pulsed faintly. And in the center, wrapped in heavy chains and layered in glowing restraints, lay something enormous. At first, Raim thought it was a statue. Then he saw it breathe slow, shallow breaths that made ash rise in small clouds from its nose. He saw the dull gold flicker of one eye, cracked and dry. The creature didn't roar. It didn't move. But even still, Raim felt something deep in his chest shift. Boy! The shout made him jump. A guard stormed toward him, heavy boots slamming the floor. He grabbed Raim's arm hard and yanked him back from the railing. What are you doing here? This area's restricted. Raim couldn't answer. He was still looking at the pit dot. The guard leaned in close, his voice rough and low. You see that thing down there? That's Ashwing. It burned half a fleet in less than a minute, tore through ships like paper. We couldn't kill it, so we buried it instead. And you're lucky it didn't smell you. Raim's mouth opened, but it looks tired. The guard's eyes narrowed. Tired doesn't mean safe. You never go near that thing again. Don't talk to it. Don't feed it. Don't even think about it. He dragged Raim back through the halls, muttering about kids in trouble. The lift hummed and hissed as it carried them back up. But even as the doors closed, Raim turned for one last glance. The dragon hadn't moved, but its tail had twitched slightly, and its eye had followed him. That night, the food in the camp was the same as always: hard cubes of protein and water that tasted like metal. Talia worked late again, her hands shaking as she typed repair codes into the broken system. Rain sat quietly. In the corner, he didn't complain. But as he stared at his tray, he thought of the dragon's eye, the slow breath, the stillness. He thought of something strange and sad in that silence. He thought of how cold the pit must be, and then, without thinking much at all, he slipped a piece of bread into his pocket. The tunnels were darker at night. Most of the guards were distracted, tired or half asleep. Rain moved carefully, his coat pulled tight and his breath low. The air buzzed with energy and the sound of distant machines. He found the same maintenance duct he'd used before, crawled through it, and reached the same viewing ledge that overlooked the pit. The dragon was still there, unmoving. Silent. I.M. knelt and pulled out the crust of bread. He tossed it gently. It bounced once on the edge of the force field and landed near the dragon's foot. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, Ashwing's head lifted. The chains groaned. Steam drifted from its nostrils. The dragon leaned forward, sniffed once, and opened its massive jaws. Instead of snapping or roaring, it took the bread gently and lay its head back down. Ram stared. He didn't know what he'd expected. Maybe fire, maybe nothing at all. But not this. The dragon blinked. Once. Ram smiled, though he didn't know why. And as he crawled back through the duct toward the only world he knew, something warm flickered deep beneath the crust of Emberhold, something old and waiting. The nights on Emberhold were darker than the inside of an engine, filled with the hum of generators and the hiss of poison rain. Every shift change left small, quiet gaps, and Rain learned them all. He moved like a shadow in oversized boots, pockets, stuffed with whatever scraps he could steal: half a bread cube, a sliver of dried fruit, a cold sip of broth hidden in a cracked metal flask. Fear followed him down each maintenance ladder, but a stronger feeling pushed him on. A need to see the lonely creature in the pit, and to prove, if only to himself, that kindness could live even here. The first time he returned after that strange meeting, Ashwing seemed carved from stone again. Its chains lay heavy, and the force field shimmered the same sickly blue. Rain knelt on the grated ledge, heart banging against his ribs, and rolled a crust toward the dragon's front claw. For a long breath, nothing happened. Then a single golden eye opened, sharp even in exhaustion. The great head lifted a handspan, and fit nostrils tasted the air. With a motion so slow, it felt like the turning of a moon. The beast accepted the offering, jaws closing softly as if around a cloud. The chain links rattled, but there was no anger in the sound. The second night brought thunder that shook the compound walls. Rain slipped through a half-broken hatch, carrying a bruised apple, and a folded strip of salted meat he had hidden in his boot. The wind cut like knives, yet the pit below held a strange warmth. Ashwing raised its head sooner this time, as though it had been waiting. The apple landed close to the dragon's chin. A warm curl of steam circled it, and the fruit did not spoil or burn. The dragon inhaled, the thin plume glowing orange in the dark, and the meat vanished behind enormous teeth. Afterward, the creature breathed out a sigh that sounded almost like relief. Rain felt it roll over him, not hot, just warm enough to chase the chill from his coat. On the third visit, Rain dared to speak. He sat cross-legged on the grated floor, nerves buzzing, and talked about the oceans shown in old study, Vid's waters so blue they seemed unreal, fish that glowed like lanterns, and waves that carried laughter instead of static. Ashwing listened, head tilted, one ruined eye half closing in what might have been peace. Every few sentences the dragon released a small puff of smoke, timed like a silent reply. When Rain ran out of words, he simply hummed the tune his mother used when wires refused to obey. The dragon's tail scraped rock in slow rhythm, as though keeping time got far above. A security drone recorded the scene. Officer Pyler watched the feed in a flickering booth, eyes wide. The creature was not supposed to move, let alone respond. She clipped the segment, attached a brief note. Subject exhibits new behavior. Possible stimulus. Unidentified child, and sent it up the chain of command. The message vanished into the data queue, lost among countless repair requests and power warnings. By morning, Pyler convinced herself it would be ignored. Most strange things on Emberhold were days stretched into weeks. Each night Rain found new ways past cameras and guards. A blind corner here, a faulty motion sensor there. Sometimes he brought nothing more than a story or a joke stolen from a tattered comic he kept under his bunk. Other times he shared real treats, lukewarm broth, a single cube of honeyed grain, even a wilted sprig of herbs from the hydroponic scraps. Ashwing never snapped, never roared. Instead, its voice emerged as a deep, broken hum that shook dust from rafters, but carried no threat. Rain began to answer with a hum of his own. Two creatures weaving sound in the darkness like a secret song. One stormy shift, Rain lost his footing on the slick catwalk. He slipped forward with a sharp cry, scraping his arm against jagged metal. Before he plunged over the edge, a wall of hot wind blasted upward. Ashwing had exhaled just enough force to push the boy back onto the platform. The dragon's neck, strained against shackles, eyes bright with alarm. Rain lay there shaking, rain pounding his face, and the dragon made that humming sound again, softer now, almost worried. When he managed to sit, the beast relaxed, lowering its head until its horns nearly touched the force field. Gratitude, or maybe relief, glowed in its single good eye. Alarms lit in the control tower for exactly 3 seconds. An anomaly in chain tension, quickly dismissed as a sensor glitch. Still, whispers spread. A creature that had burned cruisers was now protecting a child? The warden scoffed, but he doubled the patrols anyway. Somewhere in the distant capital, officials argued whether to study the phenomenon or erase it before it grew dangerous. R.A. I knew none of this. His world was the pit and the dragon and the gift he carried the following week. A broken wind-up. Walker he had rescued from the junk heap. Its tin legs clicked when he twisted the key. He set it just inside the shimmer of the field and wound it once. The toy stumbled forward, legs stuttering. Ashwing lowered its snout and nudged the metal. Creature. The walker toppled, then righted itself and continued its crooked march. A low rumble rolled from the dragon's chest, not angry, closer to amusement. Rain laughed, surprised by the sound of his own joy, and for a moment the air around them felt almost gentle. Time on Emberhold had never felt gentle before. Yet that night, after Rain crawled back through vents and hid beneath a pile of spare blankets, he noticed something new. Quiet hope flickered inside him, small but fierce. In his mind, he replayed the dragon's hum and wondered if it was music from another age, a lullaby older than stars. Beneath the prison moon, chains shifted so slightly that no monitor caught the movement, and Ashwing dreamed not of flames and battles, but of tin toys that walked and a boy with a brave, open heart. A chill swept over Emberhold the night the first anchor pin cracked. It was a barely audible sound, hidden beneath the rumble of generators and the steady thump of acid rain against steel roofs. Yet deep below, where Ashwing's shackles met, the rock, that tiny ping echoed like a warning bell. The dragon felt it first. One heavy eyelid slid open, and a low tremor ran along its spine. It was not freedom, just possibility, but possibility was enough to stir memories of wide skies and roaring suns. Ashwing flexed one foreleg, more from instinct than intent, and the fractured pin groaned again, flaking bright sparks into the dark. On the surface, Officer Pyler saw a flicker on her console. Chain tension variance .03. She leaned closer, tapped the sensor readout, and frowned. The numbers steadied, as if embarrassed to be caught misbehaving. Still, she noted the incident, marked it, needs review, and forwarded it to command. The report joined a mountain of other alerts failing: air pumps, cracked bulkheads, ration shortages, each one urgent. All of them ignored until someone bled. Governor Lazen did not bleed, but he did sweat. The message from Capitol had been blunt. Any anomaly in Sector 7 must be secured or destroyed. Lazen summoned his advisors to the war room, a cramped chamber filled with stale air and flickering holoscreens. His voice trembled despite practiced calm. We have readings that suggest movement. If the dragon breaks loose, this moon turns to ash in minutes. Elder Zori, her hair silver and her eyes sharp, raised a thin hand. It has not attacked in decades, she said quietly. Perhaps its nature has changed. Lazen snapped back. Monsters do not change. Around the table, junior officers listened, fear clinging to their breath like frost. Aim felt none of the fear in that meeting, yet unease tugged at him. When he crept through his usual duct that evening, he carried no food, only a patched blanket, and a question he could not shake. He reached the grated ledge and froze. Ashwing stood, chains taut, wings half unfurled within the force field's tight cage. Moonlight dim and dirty caught on the dragon's battered scales, and for the first time they looked more like armor than scars. Rain's heart hammered. "You're hurting," he whispered. Ashwing's head turned, one molten eye locking on him, and the boy saw neither rage nor hunger. He saw resolve. In the tower above, alarm shrieked. Pyler bolted upright, viewing the live feed. The creature was upright, a position no one had recorded in 30 years. Automatic guns powered up, their barrels glinting. Protocols triggered. Red lights flashed, blast shields slid over corridors, and troops scrambled from bunks still half asleep. On another screen, Governor Lason's face appeared, pale and slick with sweat. "Contain it," he ordered through clenched teeth. "If containment fails, initiate Scorch Protocol." Elder Zori remained behind as officers sprinted off. She leaned toward the comm and spoke only to Pyler. "Find the child," she instructed. "He is the variable. Keep him safe." Pyler hesitated, but nodded, switching the feed to track Rain's heat signature. The cameras showed a tiny figure on the ledge, no weapon, just courage. Raim watched as Ashwing bowed its head until nose met force field. Faint blue lightning crackled where scales touched energy. The dragon did not pull back. It pressed harder. Circuits overloaded with a cascade of sparks. The field flickered, dimmed, and flared bright. Ashwing rumbled in pain, yet did not retreat. Chains above clanged like angry bells, showering rust. "Please stop," Raim begged, tears cutting lines through dust on his cheeks. "They'll hurt." "You." The dragon stilled, breathing rough. Its eye softened, and in that single glowing iris Rain saw a promise. Not destruction, but protection. Suddenly, the ledge shook. A distant explosion rocked Sector 4, an accidental overload from frantic power routing. Emergency lights failed, plunging the pit into partial darkness. With the field weakened, one chain snapped, the sound like a thunderclap. Ashwing pulled the freed limb close, testing range, yet held position. It did not lunge, did not rise. Instead, it shifted its massive body between Raim and the failing force wall, forming a living shield. Soldiers flooded the upper platforms, rifles charged. Talia pushed through them, her work coat flapping. "My son is down there," she shouted, but the troopers held her back. Pyler arrived, breathless, and recognized the panic in Talia's eyes. "Overcomes," Lazen barked. "All units prepare. To fire. Take the target down before it breaches." Pilar muted her headset. "Trust me," she told Talia, and sprinted to an auxiliary lift. I'm stood, clutching the blanket. The dragon's wing curved like a wall of stone, blocking sparks and debris that rained from failing mounts. His small voice shook. "They think you're going to kill us," he said, "but I know you won't." Ashwing released a low sound, not a roar, not a growl, something sad and distant, like wind through hollow mountains. Chains shrieked again. Another link failed. Still, the beast stayed hunched, refusing freedom that would put the boy in harm's path. The auxiliary lift clanged open. Pilar rushed to the railing. "Raim!" she called. Her voice carried urgency, but not fear. "Come to me quickly." The boy turned, torn between the officer's outstretched hand and the dragon's protective crouch. Above, safety latches disengaged on mounted cannons. A countdown began in Lesson's trembling voice. 15 seconds to scorch. Elder Zori entered the control booth and overrode the feed to every speaker on the ridge. Her calm words rolled out like steady rain. "We face a choice," she said. "Do we answer change with fear, or do we observe what has not happened? The creature has power, yet it shields a child. Look and decide." The countdown paused. Troopers glanced at one another, fingers loosening on triggers. I'm seized the moment. He stepped into open view, blanket raised like a flag. "Ashwing is not our enemy," he shouted, voice cracking but clear. "He saved me. He chooses not to break free." He pointed to the smoking clamps, proof of restraint broken by choice, not by weakness. That silence held for 3 heartbeats, broken only by distant thunder. Then Pilar spoke into her comb, steady as stone. "The child is unharmed. Target is defensive. Recommend stand down." One by one, other officers echoed the call. Weapons lowered. Governor Lason's order stalled on his lips. Ashwing exhaled, the breath rolling over the ledge like warm fog. In the sudden quiet, chains no longer screamed. They quivered, uncertain, as if waiting for the moon's frozen heart to decide whether to keep holding or finally let go. Morning on Emerald never truly arrived in a blaze of color. It usually crept in as a weak orange smear behind brown clouds. Yet the sun that followed the night of the stand-down felt different, like a timid guest invited for the first time. Smoke still curled from broken energy pylons, and warning klaxons beeped in half-hearted loops, but the air carried a hush of waiting instead of the usual dread. Soldiers gathered on walkways with weapons lowered, unsure whether they were guards, witnesses, or just people meeting a future they had never imagined. Ashwing remained in the pit, crouched low, one wing draped over the fractured railing where Raim had stood. The dragon's chains lay slack in several places, but it had not taken a single step toward the open path. Every breath it drew sounded patient, as if it knew that real freedom required more than broken metal. Raim sat beside Officer Pilar on the ledge, legs dangling. Talia knelt behind him, her trembling hands pressing an emergency blanket to his shoulders. She searched his face for fear, yet found only calm, the strange calm of someone who has touched a truth bigger than walls. Governor Leeson arrived last, flanked by aides and carrying a portable console that blinked with unacknowledged commands. He stopped at the edge of the observation deck, gaze flicking from the damaged chains to Raim, then to Ashwing. Sweat darkened the collar of his uniform. Protocol told him to give the scorch order. Instinct told him the planet would burn if he did. But another feeling, one he barely recognized, whispered that fire sometimes made room for seeds. Elder Zori stepped forward. Her thin voice floated over the courtyard microphones. Emberhold was meant to bury danger, she said. But danger is a shape that shifts with every decision we make. Look at this creature. Look at this child. The monster protects the innocent, and the innocent protects the monster with nothing. But bread and faith. She turned to Lazen. What does our fear protect? No one answered. Instead, the silence stretched until a gust of hot wind swept through the pit. Ashwing raised its head, golden eye reflecting the weak daylight. Slowly, like a mountain bowing, the dragon lowered its snout to the ground, pushing the broken chains. Toward Rain's feet, a quiet surrender, or perhaps a gift. The boy stood, blanket falling away. He took one of the cold links in both hands and faced the crowd. He is asking, Rain said, voice steady, for a chance to live another way. In that moment, protocol broke under the weight of something older than rules. Pilar keyed her radio. All units, hold fire, she ordered. No one argued. Talia slid an arm around her son, but her eyes, once dulled by duty, now shone with fierce pride. Governor Lazen stared at the dragon and at his console where the word execute still pulsed red. His finger hovered, shook, and finally tapped stand down. The lights on the device dimmed, and a collective exhale passed through every throat on the ridge. Days turned to weeks, filled with the clang of tools instead of sirens. Engineers removed the scorched force field posts, replacing them with wide ramps and sensor gates set to scan for curiosity instead of threats. Ashwing moved carefully under the open sky, each step measured, so the ground crews understood it meant no harm. Children of the prison staff, who once whispered dragon tales with terror, came bearing painted stones and crumpled drawings. The dragon kept these gifts in a hollow it scraped near the pit's edge, arranging them like tiny treasures. Elder Zori shared a council that rewrote Emberhold's purpose. The facility's name changed to Dawnhaven, a place for studying and healing. Creatures the galaxy once locked away. Scientists arrived not with cages, but with listening devices and gentle voices. They discovered Ashwing's humming matched seismic songs from volcanic vents on distant moons. The dragon had been singing to a universe, but never answered until Rain arrived. When Rain learned this, he built a small metal whistle that echoed the deepest note of Ashwing's song. He stood on a platform one evening and played it. Ashwing answered, the sound rolling over the cliffs like warm thunder, and the clouds above parted for the first clear star-sparked night anyone could remember. Governor Lazen submitted his resignation, citing exhaustion and a failure of imagination. Pilar was promoted to Warden of Dawnhaven, though she preferred the title keeper. Talia accepted a new post overseeing atmosphere scrubbers. She joked that cleaner air would make it easier to breathe around dragons. Work crews transformed unused barracks into greenhouses where prison rations became fresh tomatoes and sweet herbs. Every sunrise, still pale, but growing less toxic, painted the compound in softer tones, as if the planet itself were testing hope on its tongue. 1 month after the chains broke, a transport ship arrived bearing 3 injured Maelstrom worms from the Outer Rim Wars. Ashwing watched their arrival from a cliff ledge, wings tucked. When the loading rig struggled, the dragon slid down the slope, planted its claws beneath the crates, and lifted with careful strength, guiding the wounded beasts into newly built recovery dens. The sight turned rumors into legend. The Breaker of Fleets now acted as guardian of the broken. On the night marking 40 dawns since the stand down, Raim climbed to the highest ridge with a battered telescope he found in storage. Ashwing followed, settling beside him with a sigh that stirred the dust into spirals. Together they watched a thin band of green dance along the horizon, radiation storms changing color as the atmosphere cleared. Raim whispered that one day the sky might actually turn blue. Ashwing rumbled softly, as if promising to stay until that color arrived. below them. Dawnhaven glowed with soft floodlights and the gold of new crops. Somewhere in the courtyards, children chased fireflies engineered to survive toxic air. Scientists logged data that would rewrite xenobiology texts. Soldiers, now instructors, taught old enemies how to mend instead of fight. The prison world had become a place where dangerous things and fearful hearts met halfway and learned to breathe together. When the first true sunrise finally broke still hazy, but unmistakably brighter, the light washed over warped fences, new gardens, and the dragon's scarred wings. It settled on Raim's face, and he grinned so wide it hurt. Ashwing lifted its head, catching the warmth on scales once dulled by despair. There, on a world built to hide the unthinkable, happened. Hope rose, and nothing chains, fear, or memory found the strength to hold it down again.